How is it going, Bears fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Down Podcast, where we talk everything Bears every day of the week. Could you see the Bears running 2 tight end sets in 2020? And what do you grade the tight end position? We're going to be answering these questions and many more today in regards to the tight end position in, I believe, what is episode 4 of our positional review series. Welcome back to the channel, guys. I would like to say the new goal for subscribers is 2K by the end of June, so do us a favor, subscribe. I also would like to say we put out brand new merch. We're going to flash it on the screen now. Go buy it. It actually is doing decent selling right now. I promise it's comfortable merch. You're going to enjoy it. So go rep the brand, hop on the Bear Down wave, and go cop some merch. I am your host, Chris Malpe, and today for this episode of Tight End Positional Reviews, I am joined by my co-hosts, Jaylen McClinton and Parth. How's it going, guys?
I'm just chilling. It was a great day here in Chicago. Great weather. Enjoyed the weather. Just stayed outside. Don't have school anymore, so I'm just doing nothing, especially during quarantine.
just sitting back and enjoying the weather and talking about some Bears football.
Yeah, absolutely. Illinois officially opens up on May 29th, so at least there's that to look forward to. And by open up, I mean groups of 10 or less are allowed together, so it's better than nothing. But let's hop right into it today. Tight end, definitely one of the most controversial and influential off seasons we've had in regards to that position in a while. Heading into the draft, the whole 10 tight end thing, and then they draft Cole Kmet, who's actually the 10th. We already had a lot of tight ends. Obviously adding other players in the offseason as well. So there's a lot to uncover here, so let's hop right into it. First off, at the top of the tight end positional depth chart, we have Jimmy Graham, a 5-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro. He spent 5 years with New Orleans during what I would call the cream and the crop of his career. Was really good there. Also pretty solid during his 3 years with the Seattle Seahawks, and recently is coming off of 2 years with the Green Bay Packers. He signed a 2-year, $18 million deal with the Bears, $9 million guaranteed and no trade clause. Throughout his career, he's caught 64% of passes thrown his way. He has over 7,800 career yards and 74 touchdowns. He's really proven that he can do it no matter how you cut the cake, no matter what you have to say about him. And most recently in 2019, he had 38 catches for 447 yards and 3 touchdowns. He comes to Chicago, reunites with the tight end coach from his glory days in Clancy Barone here in Chicago. I'm not saying I'm incredibly thrilled about this signing. We've talked about this one a lot in the past. But that being said, he was still more productive than the Bears tight end group as a whole in 2019, and you would also expect that he would get some more repetitions here in Chicago if he can stay healthy. So, Parth, I'm going to pass it to you. What are your thoughts on Jimmy Graham heading into this season, and what were your thoughts on that signing a couple months ago, if you want to slightly touch on that?
I'm actually pretty excited on Jimmy Graham. He brings that veteran presence to the locker room itself, and then he's also a pretty solid tight end. If you look at the stats, yes, the last 2 years he's significantly dropped from the years before, but I still think he's a big tight end that the Bears needed. In 2017, he had 10 touchdowns. The Bears did not have besides Allen Robinson, I don't think we have a solid red zone target, so there's Jimmy Graham. He can help out with that. And he brings that veteran presence, like I said, and we just drafted a tight end, Cole Kmet, who we all hope can become one of the better tight ends in the league. And Jimmy Graham was one of the better tight ends in the league back in the day, so that veteran presence could be there just to teach Cole Kmet the ways to the NFL.
Yeah, we discussed this. I remember when we had Adam Rank on, we talked about the tight ends in Green Bay. The best tight end in Green Bay arguably has been like Richard Rodgers or Jermichael Finley during the Aaron Rodgers era, and that maybe just shows a little bit about how the Packers use their tight ends not too efficiently, and if they do, it's probably going to be some bang play that Aaron Rodgers makes himself. So with how important tight ends are in this offense, if Jimmy Graham can stay healthy, he's going to have all the opportunities that he wants. He's a 5-time Pro Bowler. He's caught 64% of the passes thrown his way throughout his career. He still can be a red zone threat, and he's going to be a good mentor to Cole Kmet. Honestly, I'd probably rather have Eric Ebron here, but I can't really complain. Let's just hope that he can stay healthy and do his thing again and hopefully have an up year here in Chicago in 2020. Jaylen, what are your thoughts on Jimmy Graham heading into training camp?
Just like you guys, I wasn't a big fan of his contract when we initially signed him, but now that I had a couple months to sit on it, and the draft has passed, and we took a tight end in Cole Kmet in the second round. I definitely feel like he can come here and be a vet for Cole Kmet, who's still young. I think Cole's only like 20, 21 years old, and for him being a rookie in the league, that's very young, and he has a lot of time to learn, especially behind Jimmy Graham, who was a 5-time Pro Bowler, one of the best tight ends in the league not that long ago. So I do feel like he's going to come in here and be a vet for him. Last year he had 447 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns, which was more production than any of our tight ends that was on the roster last year. So if he can come in and be a red zone threat, catch a couple touchdowns here and there for Trubisky or Foles, then that wouldn't be a bad signing.
Next, wide receiver, tight end 2, we've got Cole Kmet, the 43rd overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft out of Notre Dame. In 2019, he had 43 catches and 515 yards, 6 touchdowns on the year. He averaged 12 yards per catch when he was throwing the ball. Some interesting tidbits. First off, Cole is from Lake Barrington, Illinois, a hometown kid, so always fun to root for kids from Chicago when they're playing for their hometown team. Secondly, Notre Dame head coach Brian Kelly, and they produced a ton of great tight ends over there at Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish, pretty good at doing that. They recently produced, not recently, but Kyle Rudolph and Travis Kelce both came out of Notre Dame, and Coach Brian Kelly said that Kmet is probably ahead of pace in regards to where those guys were when they came into the league. And we also have to note that Cole played baseball his first 2 seasons at Notre Dame, was primarily focused on another sport. So still an incredibly raw talent coming in. Obviously, I spoke about Clancy Barone earlier, someone who's been able to develop great tight ends in the past. Jaylen mentioned it a couple of days ago on our playoffs episode. Julius Thomas there in Denver, Kyle Rudolph a little bit there in Minnesota, and obviously probably the one who kickstarted Jimmy Graham's career down there and made him a 5-time Pro Bowler in New Orleans. So Cole Kmet, definitely high expectations for him personally. I'm just going to give my thoughts first on this one. I was a fan of the pick, honestly, when it happened. I had a little bit of an inkling that it was going to happen. We did a live stream reacting to the picks, and I think we were all okay with it at the time. But hands down for me, best tight end in the draft. He was number 1 on my board, and I'm glad he ended up in Chicago. And Jimmy Graham's not going to be around forever, and if Matt Nagy is around for a while, we know how important tight end is in his offense and in most any applicable offense in the NFL. So Cole Kmet will come in at tight end 2. Probably not someone that many Bears fans expected we would have, but we have to embrace it at this point. So Parth, I'm going to pass it to you. What were your thoughts on the Cole Kmet pick? And I'm going to ask a little bit later what you expect out of him in Chicago, but just give me your thoughts on having him at tight end 2.
I'm excited. This was one of the picks that I definitely saw that the Bears would take in the second round. He is a complete tight end, what the Bears need. He has a receiving upside, and he's a great blocker. I don't think many people know that, but he was one of the best tight end blockers that the NFL draft has seen in recent history. I saw that somewhere on, I think, during draft coverage. So Cole Kmet has that blocking upside that the Bears definitely need, because Jimmy Graham isn't too much of a blocker as well.
Yeah, Jaylen, what are your thoughts? I know you kind of, when we did do that live stream, had a little bit of a negative/surprised reaction to the Kmet pick. So
What?
You were just kind of surprised, I feel like.
That's not true at all. I was surprised because I was nervous. Like, he was like, "Oh my God, we actually picked him," and I thought we was gonna take Jalen Hurts or something like that. Like, I was nervous, and then when you told me it was Cole Kmet, I was relieved. But we didn't have any tight end production last year. Trey Burton got hurt. Jesper Horsted, he had his games here and there. JP Holtz, he only had he had one good receiving game, so we didn't have any production at all. And bringing Jimmy Graham and Cole Kmet now, that should upgrade our tight end position huge. Cole Kmet, like I said, he's 20, 21 years old, so he still has a lot to learn in the NFL. This is only his He's only played college football for like 1 year because he came out as junior. He didn't have the best season last year. Only had like 500 yards. Not great production for a person who was taken in the second round. And I could see why Bears fans weren't really happy about us taking him. But the upside is there. He's a very athletic tight end. Some people call him Baby Gronk. Hopefully that we're not giving him that nickname because our last Baby Gronk was Adam Shaheen. We all know how that turned out. So. Hopefully he can come in here. I don't expect a lot out of him in his rookie year, but if he can have 300, 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, I call it a successful season for him.
Absolutely. Looking a little bit further down the tight end depth chart, tight end 3 is an interesting one. Another player the Bears brought in this offseason in Demetrius Harris. Spent 5 years with the Kansas City Chiefs and 1 year in 2019 with the Cleveland Browns. He was an undrafted player in the 2013 NFL Draft. He is entering his 7th year in the NFL as a prominent blocking tight end. He had 15 catches for 149 yards and 3 touchdowns in 2019 in his only season with the Browns. A fun fact about Harris, and it plays to Matt Nagy's strengths, Harris actually lined up at wide receiver for the entirety of the 2016 season and scored a touchdown there for the Kansas City Chiefs. So obviously, he's here to predominantly be a blocker, a little bit of a receiving option, but you never know. You could throw him out there at wide receiver and use him as a distraction. So I don't think there's much more to say about him. I don't need to really go around. But were you guys fine with this signing?
Yeah, it's just another depth signing, and Bears struggled with depth with tight end last year, and I know he could put up the numbers if needed due to injury or something.
Yeah, he's here to be a blocking tight end, an extra body on the offensive line, not nothing major.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking a little bit more down the depth chart, next you would probably argue that it would be J.P. Holtz and Jesper Horsted, but I've been wanting to answer this question for a while just because I'm happy to say my answer and finally be relieved about this answer. And I'm sure you guys are ready to be done and wrap a bow on this story as well, even though it's an ugly bow. But, Parth, I'm going back to you. First and foremost, for our first question about the tight end group, is Adam Shaheen done in Chicago? Will he be cut and not make the 53-man roster? Because I have strong thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to say 0 chance he makes the roster. He was probably the biggest bust that Ryan Pace I'm going to say he's the biggest bust that Ryan Pace has drafted. We all had high expectations from him. We gave him that nickname of Baby Gronk. My man turned out to be baby, just a straight up baby. But I don't want to say hate, but I really dislike Adam Shaheen. There's a 0% chance he makes the roster. Let's just put it at that.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. If you look at Shaheen, he was a second round pick in the 2017 NFL Draft. Obviously drafted there after Mitchell Trubisky, so it wasn't the greatest start to Ryan Pace. Ryan Pace's 2017 NFL Draft. Obviously, he got Eddie Jackson and Tariq Cohen later on in that one. But if you look at Shaheen, 12 receptions for 127 yards and 3 touchdowns in 2017 has been his best year in Chicago, and that's incredibly underperforming, I would say. He was chosen ahead of guys like Alvin Kamara and George Kittle. Hasn't been able to stay healthy. Ended up being a healthy scratch in 2019, and has only had barely over 110 yards in the last 2 years and only 1 touchdown. So, Jaylen, I'm pretty sure this is a pretty easy question for you to answer, but is Adam Shaheen's time in Chicago done?
With all the tight ends on the roster that we have now, definitely. I was a huge fan of Adam back in 2017. I thought he could be a Baby Gronk. He was wearing the number 87 too. He's a big, tall tight end who formerly played basketball. I thought he could be a red zone threat for Trubisky. That wasn't the case at all. Like you said, he had his best season in his rookie year, and then injuries basically depleted his last 2 seasons. So I don't think he will make the roster. I don't think he will make another NFL team. Hopefully he does because, he plays in the NFL, but I just don't see him making, the 53.
Yeah, a lot of tight ends on this roster, a lot of cutting to do, and a lot of other players down lower on that roster, like Darian Clark, someone who played college basketball for a while. We'll see him, first glimpse of him out at training camp. But into the next question, this is a very interesting one. Obviously, the Bears have the top 3 solidified with Jimmy Graham, Kmet, and Harris. The next 2, I guess, arguably would be J.P. Holtz and Jesper Horsted. So I think I know what Parth and I are going to answer on this one. because we've had some pretty good relations with Jesper Horsted in the past, and he's been awesome to us. So, Jaylen, I'm going to start with you. If you had to pick between the two, are you keeping J.P. Holtz or Jesper Horsted as the fourth tight end on this roster?
I would think you would know my answer because I've talked about Jesper a lot recently. But I'm going with Jesper. He's a former wide receiver out of Princeton. He's very smart, obviously. Last season, he had that amazing touchdown grab against the Detroit Lions in the third quarter when we were coming back against them. I'm a big fan of his. I'm kind of sad that we brought in all these tight ends, so he won't really have a chance to get onto the field other than probably like special teams or something like that. But I'm going to have to pick Jesper.
Yeah, Jesper Horsted, someone who flashed when he had opportunities there in 2019. He didn't have that many of them. He only started in one game and played in about 5. 8 receptions for 87 yards and a touchdown there. He was awesome at just developing his knowledge of playing the tight end position. Jaylen mentioned it earlier, but he was obviously a wide receiver there at Princeton, and he picked up incredibly well on the tight end position and how it works here in Chicago, and provided some decent help when the tight end position was absolutely horrid there in 2019. That all being said, I'm a little bit weary about his odds just because, J.P. Holtz isn't a terrible receiver. He can also play as a traditional fullback and do some other things as well that Horsted might not be able to adapt to just yet. So I would choose Horsted, but I think if the Bears keep 4 tight ends, it's really going to be a competition. It's going to be a 50-50 split. So Parth, I'm going to pass it to you. Obviously, you and I met Jesper Horsted at Eddie Jackson's charity softball game there in 2019, and he supports our Instagram pages. But if you had to choose between the two, J.P. Holtz or Jesper Horsted?
It's a really tough decision because I love both of them. As much as I love Jesper, I love JP. I think he has one of the better tight ends on the roster, looking at last season too. But just because of our relationships with Jesper, I'm going to go with Jesper. And I also think JP is very similar to Demetrius Harris. So if we keep Harris, then I think Jesper gets the upper hand as the fourth tight end, just because Harris and called JP's game are very similar. So Jesper could be a decent backup to Jimmy Graham with the wide. Is it U tight end? Yeah, U tight end position. So I think Jesper, also he's out of Princeton. Like Jaylen said, he's smart, he's knowledgeable. He had that beautiful grab against the Detroit Lions in that Thanksgiving game, which definitely helped us win that game. So excited to see what Jesper can do in training camp once again and hopefully elevate his game to the NFL.
A lot of competition coming in 2020 training camp. Tight end is definitely not one of those positions that lacks a competition. It's going to be very interesting. Next question, obviously Kmet you would expect is someone that is going to get a ton of reps here in 2020. Jimmy Graham, obviously, they bring him in to try and rejuvenate him. Parth, I'm going to pass it back to you to answer this one first. The Bears haven't been a team that have run a ton of 2 tight end sets in the past, but do you think that they could change and that's something that they would be more, comfortable with in 2020?
I think we will, especially if Nick Foles is at quarterback. I know we watched the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl run, and we watched Nick Foles use Trey Burton, Zach Ertz, and Dallas Goedert, all 3 of the guys equally, basically. And I think if the Bears have Nick Foles at quarterback, we'll see Cole Kmet, Jimmy Graham, Harris, Holtz / Horsted on the field at multiple times. And I think it's actually beneficial to David Montgomery as well. If we're going to run the ball, we all know that our offense line isn't the greatest, so just having more big bodies will help Montgomery find the holes as well.
Absolutely. Obviously you bring in Jimmy Graham to be that number 1 tight end, but I want them to run 2 tight end sets just so we can see as much as we want to see out of Cole Kmet. And not only that, but also, when the backups end up getting in there, when guys like Kmet and Graham get tired or possibly injured, I would love to see guys like Demetrius Harris, who's a veteran and has been able to do it slightly in the past, and guys like J.P. Holtz and guys like possibly Jesper Horsted get more reps. Definitely benefits David Montgomery. The more different formations that the Bears come out in, just the more weapons that Matt Nagy has on the field, the more creative he can get with play design, along with Bill Lazor. So I definitely expect some more double tight end sets in 2020 out of the Bears. Jaylen, what do you think?
Definitely. This Andy Reid coaching tree, Doug Peterson, Andy Reid, when he used Demetrius Harris and Travis Kelce back when he was on the Kansas City Chiefs, and double tight end sets like Parth said. The Philadelphia Eagles used Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert and Trey Burton too when he was with the Eagles. So I feel like that's why we brought in all these tight ends. We brought in Jimmy Graham and Cole Kmet so we can see that two tight end set where, especially if it's Foles, he depends on his tight ends a lot, especially with his offensive line and like quick drags and stuff like that. So I definitely could see us using two tight end sets in this offense.
Absolutely. So obviously, the Bears have 2 second-round picks in this year's draft. They spend one, use one, whatever you want to call it, on Kmet. No one really knows where he could have gone if the Bears didn't draft him. It could have been 44. It could have been 84. But that being said, high expectations for Kmet coming into Chicago. Pretty simple question here, and it's a 2-pronged question. Jaylen, I'm going to go to you first. What do you expect out of Kmet during his rookie season? And do you think that he's the best tight end prospect from this year's draft?
Okay, the first question. Like I said, I don't expect him to have a huge season like he's a rookie of the year type candidate. I just expect him to come in and have, I'll say, like around 40 receptions, 600 yards, like 4 or 5 touchdowns. Just be another option for Mitchell or Foles in this offense, which is something we really need because we didn't have that at all last year in this offense. And a lot of people say he was the best tight end in the draft. I feel like it was Bryson Hopkins. He was my number 1 tight end. But I could obviously see why a lot of people think it was Cole Kmet. He's a decent blocker. He's a great receiver. He's 6'6", 6'7". So I'm gonna say yes, but in my opinion, no, because I had Bryson Hopkins.
Yeah, I'm going to say Kmet is the best tight end from this draft class. I liked Hopkins a lot too. I never really pondered the thought of the Bears getting Kmet. I did not think they were going to take a tight end that early. I kept talking about wanting them to trade back in the second round to try and get some more picks. They did end up with Kmet. I'm not really complaining about that. So I expect a decent year out of him. Jaylen mentioned it. He's behind Jimmy Graham. I expect that he's going to get his opportunities, and I hope that he steps up like he did during his junior year at Notre Dame and shows us Bears fans some hope for the future because he's definitely going to be the premier tight end for the Bears for the foreseeable future unless something really bad happens or if Jimmy Graham can play until he's 45 and is incredibly good. So, Parth, I'm going to pass it to you. What do you expect out of Kmet during his rookie season, and is he the best tight end from this year's draft? I know you were high on Adam Troutman.
Yeah, I was high on Adam Troutman, and I wanted the Bears to take Adam Troutman in the 4th round if possible. But I think if you look at it, Cole Kmet was definitely the best tight end. He was the most NFL-ready tight end. And because of that, I feel like he can have a pretty successful rookie season. I mean, if we looked at last year, there was 2 tight ends that were taken in the 1st round, TJ Hockenson and Noah Fant. Noah Fant definitely had a better year than Hockenson, and Hockenson was the 8th pick in the draft that the Lions took, and he had like around 350 yards, and Noah Fant had 560 yards. So if we're looking at their production, I think with Jimmy Graham in the offense, and as much as Nagy likes to spread the ball out, if we can get another 450, 500-yard season from Cole Kmet, especially in his rookie year, I'd say it's a solid season for him.
Yeah, a lot of high expectations for Kmet. Bears haven't really had an incredible tight end, I would say, since probably – I mean, Trey Burton was good there in 2018. And Martellus. No, I was going to say Martellus had his seasons as well, but like the last consistent good Bears tight end was probably Greg Olsen, and we traded him away, and he was better when he left. So pretty typical. But finally, the last thing we have to do here, we do it on every episode of our positional reviews, is we grade the position. I'm going to go first, and I'm going to base it off of the Bears tight ends last year. I'm going to give the Bears a B at the tight end position, and that might be a little bit of a stretch, but if you look at all the talent that they got here in comparison to last year, obviously this is expecting that Adam Shaheen's going to be gone. The top 3 tight ends go from probably Trey Burton, Adam Shaheen, and J.P. Holtz. It goes from that to Jimmy Graham, Cole Kmet, Demetrius Harris. I expect that they're all going to provide and put in their hands on offense and be pretty solid, so I'm going to go ahead and say B for the tight end position. Jaylen, what would you grade the tight end position?
I'm going to give it a C+. It's a lot of players in this tight end group that could produce, and it's a lot that might not produce because it's so many right now. I'm pretty sure that number is gonna get lower as the season approaches. But I'm gonna base it off the top three last year too. During the season, our top three, with Trey Burton being hurt, Adam Shaheen not really playing like that, was probably Ben Broniker, Jesper, and JP. Now it's going to be Jimmy Cole and Demetrius Harris. That's definitely a way better tight end group, just based off the top three right there. So I'm going to give it a C+ because, like I said, there's a lot of players that I could see producing and a lot of players that I don't see producing.
Yeah. Parth, what do you think? What would you grade the tight end position heading into training camp?
I guess I'm a lot higher than you guys. I was going to give it an A-.
That's bold.
I'm to see what it's bold. It is bold, but if we look at the depth, the chart, I feel like the Bears have one of the better depths. If you look at it, like if we can go down the list, I think our tight end 1, tight end 2, and tight end 3 are very solid tight ends. If we look at it, and another team that has another tight end like us, tight end room like us, I'd say is the Buccaneers, who have 1 through 3 solid tight ends. If you look, I like Demetrius Harris as a third tight end option. Cole Kmet at number 2. If we didn't sign Jimmy Graham, Cole Kmet would have been our starter. So just to add Jimmy Graham was just another spark to the offense, in my opinion. If I really can see Jimmy Graham going old days, especially with Clancy Barone here in Chicago.
Yeah, and it was a good point that Jaylen brought this up because I was going to ask the question but completely forgot to write it on my script. But do you guys see Ben Broniker making the roster in 2020? I mean, something about me personally, and you guys don't have to give long answers at all for this one once I pass it to you guys, but personally for me, I just don't feel good about him. They signed him to a decent extension a couple of years ago, and I think he's fine, but hasn't been able to perform at all times. Also has been a little bit injury prone at times, so if it's me, I'd probably move on from Ben Broniker. I don't know. Jaylen, what do you think?
Yeah, it's the same thing with, he's not an Adam Shaheen because we didn't draft him with the second round pick. He was a undrafted tight end, but it's just too much talent on this roster for him to make it. Yes, he knows the offense. He's been here since 2016, but it's just way more better players ahead of him.
Yeah, Parth, what do you think about Broniker?
He could battle it out with Holtz and Horsted for that fifth option at fifth, tight end 5, that I think the Bears will keep 5 tight ends, so I think he'll battle it out with them. And the upper hand he has with all of them is he's a really good special teams player. He's been playing special teams for the Bears for years now, so that's the only thing he could have over Horsted, in my opinion. But it'll be interesting to see how that competition rolls out. There's competition everywhere for the Bears, so hopefully that breeds some great players out of that.
And then one more question that I forgot to ask. All I need is a one-word answer from the both of you guys. Jaylen, I'm starting with you. Should the Bears line up Cordero Patterson at tight end this year?
I know he wanted to be lined up as tight end last year. He said he was going to ask Nagy about it due to all the injuries we were having. That would totally not be fair. A person who's 6'3", 6'4", and runs a 4.2 against linebackers who were majority not as fast as him, that would be scary. And if we did that, Nagy is a crazy guy, and I like it. So I would say yes, definitely.
Yeah. I'm going to agree with you, Parth. Are we in agreement here?
Yeah, why not? I mean, switch it up a little bit. It'd be fun to see.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much going to do it for episode 4 of the Positional Review series. You heard us talk everything about Bears tight ends. Should be a very intriguing competition to watch as training camp rolls around. If you want more content from us, do us a favor, head over to our website, beardown.com. We're posting columns, articles, and blogs every day. If you want to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, I almost combined the 2 words there. I almost said Twister. My goodness. But if you want to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, go check our channel out. Bear Down on each social media platform. You can also find the link to our Instagram fan pages down in the description. Another long positional review, but definitely an important one. Parth Shaw, Jaylen McClellan, it's been a pleasure to talk to you guys tonight. Any last words?
People can stop clowning on the tight end position of the Bears. I mean, yes, we did have 10 tight ends, but they're all camp bodies at the end of the day, so I don't get what people were trying to say with that stuff, but I think it's going to be a great year for the tight ends in Chicago.
May the best tight end win since we have so many of them. Like Parth, I don't know why people are clowning us. They were clowning us last year when we had 11 kickers on the roster, and by training camp we only had 2, which was Elliott Fry and Eddie Pinero, who ended up winning the job. So I feel like that's Pace doing quality over quantity.
Yeah. Competition breeds winners and breeds success at the end of the day. So I really don't hate on the Bears for bringing in all these players, and it really should be a good competition to watch. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's been a pleasure to be your host. Once again, my name is Chris Malpe. Bears fans, continue to do us a favor. Stay safe. State's opening up soon, but continue to be precautionary. But have fun with it. I mean, it's the first time we'll have been out, I guess, since about March. And as always, do us a favor and bear down. We'll see you in the next episode. Peace.